Super Mario Bros. 2, a classic game that has quite a famous backstory. It plays a lot differently than other Mario games, and that's in part because it has its roots in another game released only in Japan called Doki Doki Panic. They look and play almost exactly the same. Back in the 80s, changing a game for a different region was quite common. There was no internet to learn about these things. Importing games was difficult and expensive, and there were hardware and TV compatibility issues too. So almost nobody knew the real story. Since then, a lot of information has come to light. It's been talked about many times over, but for the sake of the complete story, let's repeat it again, very quickly. The first Super Mario Bros. Came out in Japan in 1985, then later the same year in the US and the rest of the world in 1987. It also got re-released as a launch title for the Famicom Disk System. Then came Super Mario Bros. 2 in Japan in 1986. It looked and played like the first game, with the difficulty turned all the way up. That same year, Nintendo collaborated with Fuji TV to release All Night Nippon Super Mario Bros. It was a mix of stages from the first two games with Japanese celebrities and musicians from the radio program All Night Nippon added in. In 1987, a game called Doki Doki Panic was released. It had a superficial connection to the Mario series, things like coins, starmen, and POW blocks, but had unique characters from something in Japan called Yume Kojo. More on that in a minute. The game was later retooled as Super Mario Bros. 2 for the US in 1988 and the rest of the world in 1989. Don't forget that the game was produced by Shigeru Miyamoto, and the original demo was supposed to be two-player co-op and vertically scrolling. Then came Super Mario Bros. 3 and Super Mario World. A lot of people in Japan and the West never really knew about the switch that was pulled off, unless you read magazines who did their homework, or if you caught a tiny peek behind the curtain in the Mario Mania Guide, page 21. Then, in 1992, the Western Super Mario Bros. 2 got a release in Japan as Super Mario USA. It was exactly the same game except for the title screen. The secret was finally out in 1993 with the release of Super Mario All-Stars, which had all 4 games with updated graphics. Then came the internet, and more people learned more and more information about the game that now is seemingly boring old news at this point. But I want to know about Doki Doki Panic. Despite the hundreds of videos and articles about the Doki Doki Panic Mario 2 Switch, there's a few questions I've never had answered. They say this game was based on an event called Yume Kojo, in English the Dream Factory. But that's all anyone has ever said. An event! What was the event? Why can't anyone find anything out about it? And why is the game called Yume Kojo and Doki Doki Panic? Why 2 names? They say that the 4 characters that became Mario, Luigi, Princess Peach, and Toad were based on Fuji TV characters. So what were they from? Why can't anything about them be found? What's with all the masks in the game? Why are the characters dressed like they're from the Middle East as well? It's a key part of the game's history that's gone missing for too long, and it's time we found out. When we come back, a detailed look at the creation of Yume Kojo.
Hey, いらっしゃい、レッドスネークカモン。はい、どうした？大根が出て、お前がなんでそっちにいんだよ。この野郎、邪魔な野郎で。お前笑ってるやつあるか、本当にもう。大根引き抜いちゃうかな。抜く、担ぐ、投げる。正統派アクションゲーム、夢工場ドキドキパニック。7月10日発売。
チケットはご覧のところでお求めになれます。
スーパーマリオブラザーズ2はさすがディスクで面白い。下手くそ。やればやるほどディスクシステム。
The initial concept of Yume Kojo began in March 1984 when Fuji TV executives Haruo Shikanai, Michiyasu Kawauchi, and manga artist Shotaro Ishinomori took a trip to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and took part in Carnival. They enjoyed the heat and sun, the rhythm of samba, and the camaraderie of everyone who attended. Upon returning to Japan, they decided to create an event that was like Carnival, but in Japan and sponsored by Fuji TV. It would be a large-scale outdoor summertime event with a focus on new media with technology exhibitions. It would present a new era of the moving image, with media displays and hardware and software demonstrations. It would also be for the youth by inviting children to test out new technologies hands-on, as the children of 1987 would grow up to be the adults who would start the 21st century. The exhibitions were to excite the imagination and open the door to the dreams of the future. Planning began, and by June 1985, 400 people from around the world were selected to design and construct the exhibitions that would be on display at Yume Kojo. Dreams and imagination were to be the cornerstones of the event. The people who would construct these would be referred to as Imagination Engineers, or Imagineers. 10 major pavilions would hold the events that would be planned. 70 names were pitched as potential titles for the event as well, such as Yumeige, which means Dream Mirage, Dream Matsuri, which means Dream Festival, but the final name was chosen as Communication Carnival Yume Kojo 87. Sometimes in English it was referred to as Dream Machine, even though Yume Kojo really means Dream Factory. By 1986, things were coming together as the Imagineers would orchestrate the mass communication terminals, large-screen 3D movies, CG and holographic animation, and other technology that was out of this world for the mid-80s. To coordinate so many different companies and technologies as well as the staff to be ready by opening day seemed like an insurmountable challenge, but one that was going to have to be met. People worked night and day in 1987 to get the job done, and after 3 years of hard work, it all came together, and Yume Kojo was set for opening day on July 18th, 1987 in Tokyo and Osaka, each with the same events that were symbolic of the age of new media. While it was being planned behind the scenes, it was being promoted front and center on Japanese TV, radio, print, in music, and promotional goods such as train cards, t-shirts, masks, albums, video games, and more, all of which were timed in a special way to create awareness and build excitement for Yume Kojo. The plan was to promote for an entire year leading up to opening day. These promotional campaigns would feature themes and imagery from cultures from all over the world. A family of characters were created to promote Yume Kojo as an event full of fascination and wonder. The main character would be a young boy named Imagine, the Japanese form of the word imagine. Joining him would be his girlfriend Lina and his mama and papa, his younger twin brother and sister Poki and Piki, and their pet monkey Rusa, which is Saru, the word for monkey in Japanese, backwards. Together they would be known as the Imagine family. They would be featured in commercials, on posters, as figures, and live characters making appearances at the grounds of Yume Kojo. So they were the mascots of the event, but I didn't know they were featured so prominently. I always thought Lina was Imagine's sister, but no, it says right there it's his girlfriend. There were also special masks, which were called Imaginia masks, and were based on Italian art styles, and were meant to encapsulate the feelings of mystery, fashion, and youth. The masks were worn by street performers and at party events during Yume Kojo. They were sold there as well for attendees to wear too, or as a small mask that you could wear as a pin. You could buy these masks there! That makes a lot of sense now because a lot of the enemies wear masks. The Shy Guys, Sniffits, Bezos, and Tweeters wear masks. Phanto is a mask, as are the exits too. The blocks that became mushrooms in Mario 2 are also masks. I always thought they were from Kabuki, but no, it's Italian. Then there were singing groups arranged to sing the theme songs used in advertising for Yume Kojo. There was an all-female group known as Onyanko Club, or Kitty Club in English, who for 1986 and 1987 changed their name to Idol Yume Kojo and released several singles, including Adventure Dream, which was promoted heavily on radio and TV leading up to July 1987. Then there was an all-male group called Yume Kojo, the band. Again, the same name as the event. They released several singles in 1986 and 1987, including Photogenic Angel and the main theme of Yume Kojo, Arabian Nights. So the whole reason these characters look the way they do is from a song? A song called Arabian Nights? Well, if the technology's from Japan, Carnival is from Brazil, the masks are from Italy, then having a song called Arabian Nights and Arabian characters really rounds out the international feel that they were looking for. On July 18th, 1986 at 2 p.m., the first promotion of Yume Kojo began. Haruo Shikanai, along with 20 other Fuji executives and on-air talent, entered Studio 2 wearing Imaginia masks, proclaiming that exactly 1 year from now, Yume Kojo would commence. At the same time, the mascot character Imagine was shown for the first time. Throughout 1986, other phases of the promotion were rolled out. The world-famous arena, Budokan, was transformed into Maharaja Yume Kojo and became a disco hall in August 1986. Idol Yume Kojo started a radio program in October 1986. Yume Kojo the band released their debut album in December 1986, with several singles receiving heavy airplay in 1987. In the spring of 1987, more items were released, such as train passes and telephone cards, with the Yume Kojo logo on them. By March 1987, 45% of the Japanese population knew what Yume Kojo was, and the marketing campaign had made the event a household word. The final part of the year-long marketing plan was the release of a home video game, co-produced by Nintendo, called Yume Kojo Doki Doki Panic on July 10, 1987, just 8 days before the grand opening. It was sold for 2,980 yen, and had lifetime sales of 350,000 units. When we come back, a look at the events of Yume Kojo.
行こうよ夢工場87夢工場はご覧の社の協賛でお送りしています。
はーい、私カタリンよ。スーパーマリオ USA で敵キャラを演じてるの。おーっと、アメリカでは売れっ子だったのよ。今度は日本のお友達を優しく遊ばせてあげるわ。
アメリカ帰りのファミコンソフト、スーパーマリオ USA。
この夏、素敵な夢があなたを。
夢工場の中にきっとみんなの夢があるはずよ。ゆいの店にも遊びに来てね。
前売り券はただいま発売中。
On July 18th, 1987, at 9:42 a.m., Haruo Shikanai, Fuji TV head producer and creator of Yume Kojo, stood with a group of executives, Imagineers, and other staff to say a prayer in English, French, German, and Japanese for peace throughout the world and for a successful event. At 10 a.m., Yume Kojo opened to the public after 3.5 years of intense planning. It would be 44 days of technological demonstrations, concerts, performances, food, and fun. The first area, which everyone goes through, was called Tanoshii. This was the main entranceway into Yume Kojo. It was filled with lights, mirror displays, and futuristic music. Amazing Matsuri Orochi was a giant dome filled with special effects. The chief Imagineer was Ishinomori, who was with Shikanai at Carnival in 1984. He was most famous for Kamen Rider. This exhibition was billed as the revitalization of the heart of Japanese special effects. Magical Romance was a digital matchmaking service. You enter your profile on a computer, and it's stored on a card. Then you take your card to 9 different stations to match personalities with other people, and maybe to find love. Mach Vision was a showcase of game technology with 3D games from Nintendo and Sega. Then there's Super Game Z. This was a collaboration with Sega and Nissan with an amazing hybrid of outrun arcade machines, remote cameras, and radio-controlled cars. This game had wait times of up to 5 hours. There was also a model car you could buy, take home, and build with Imagine and the masks on the box. Disco Vision 360 was an audio-visual display with 336 TVs that were 21 inches in screen size, arranged in a giant circle. They were stacked 4 TV sets high by 84 sets across for an amazing 360-degree audio-visual display. Disco Vision 360 ran a set of images running at 30 frames per second for 8 minutes and displayed 14,400 images rotating around in a 360-degree circle. If you could somehow look at each monitor the entire time, you would watch the screens change images 4,838,400 times. 3D Video Live was a large theater showing 3D movies with improved 3D glasses technology. There was also a place just for kids too called 3D Fantasy Balloon, which featured exotic animals in 3D. The Space Womb was a giant futuristic disco with flashing lights and music, giving you the feel of being in outer space. The Dream Emporium was a huge marketplace with goods and foods from cultures from around the world. There were also greeting booths to meet celebrities. The rest of the space was used for the Carnival site. It was a giant outdoor space with walking ground pavilions, musical stages, and performance areas. This was the nerve center of Yume Kojo. This is where the switchboards, satellites, and monitors were all running behind the scenes to help make the magic of Yume Kojo work. It's amazing to think of how all this hardware was put together. Yume Kojo ran for 44 straight days from July 18th to August 30th, 1987. In all, 5,705,544 people attended and took part in the Communication Carnival in Tokyo and Osaka. On the final day of the event, a special grand finale was held called Sayonara Yume Kojo. It ended with singing, dancing, fireworks, and some tears. 3.5 years of planning had successfully come to an end. Yume Kojo was gone, but the legacy lived on. HDTV would start regular broadcast in Japan in 1994. Video phones and 3D movies have also caught on in recent years. All of these were visions of the future at Yume Kojo and are now reality for us. Super Game Z would be back on display in 1989. Yume Kojo the band would change its name to the Blimp Club, after the blimp that flew over the concert pavilion and was in the title screen of Doki Doki Panic. They released more songs into the 90s and still perform to this day. Ishinomori continued to work on tokusatsu shows and manga books until he passed away in 1998 at age 60. Haruo Shikanai also passed away very young at the age of 42 in April 1988, just 8 months after the end of Yume Kojo. On December 9th, 1987, a special compendium book was released. The book chronicled everything, including uniform types, posters, the names of each pavilion, what was sold there, and how much it cost, a timeline of events, and the names of everyone who worked on, sponsored, or contributed to Yume Kojo in any way. It even had the number of toilets they had, 418 if you were wondering. As for Doki Doki Panic, it went on to find new life as Super Mario Bros. 2, as we all know. But now we can look back at the game with a new perspective, understanding the origins of the characters and themes used in it. It's amazing to think that one event 30 years ago has impacted Mario games to this very day. I'll never look at Shy Guys the same way again. Thanks for watching. You've made it to the end, which means you must have liked this video. Subscribed? Go ahead and subscribe. You'll stay up to date on the latest videos. And after you've done that, click on one of these 3 other videos. I'm sure you'll like it.